Hi everyone, this is ARRR from the YouTube channel Starpath Academy, and today I want to talk about predators and property rights within your personal philosophy. This is a very interesting topic for me, and I guess I want to explore this more with you, with the audience, but basically I want to compare when it comes to two very different philosophies or approaches to life. One being where you are just a collection of experiences and you are moving through life and moving through this reality or this plane, and you don't necessarily own anything. You don't necessarily have the rights for property, but you own the experiences, and your sole purpose is to gather experiences. A very soft, maybe Buddhist, maybe somewhat even Christian philosophy, but also can be taken into one extremity. The other philosophy of very strict property rights and struggle going against the very nature to make that nature productive for you, right? And when it comes to just imagine two different animals, let's say cattle, grazing cattle, right? Or herbivores in general, where they stay at a certain place, they eat from the land, whatever is given to them when it rains, and then once they consume that, they just go and move to the next place, or maybe with the seasons or seasonalities, they have this cycle of where they are, what they do, and how they do it. A very peaceful existence in one way, but it may not be ideal for a personal philosophy for you, depending on what your experiences want to be or what you want to experience in this life. But that is sort of the philosophy that is being pushed upon many young people, especially in the Western countries. While the philosophy itself is not bad or good, the question is, what is the purpose behind propagandizing these type of philosophies? On the other hand is sort of the philosophy of the predators, where they know what property rights are, very much so. Think about lions or the animals that have their hunting grounds. They defend that hunting ground viciously. Usually sometimes the roles of a male in that species is particularly only to defend the hunting ground. For the females, think about lions who actually do the hunting, but then the males are specifically tasked to protect the hunting ground against other males. It's a very different type of existence when the hunting ground is usually, there are better or worse hunting grounds. Think about watering holes and so on and so forth. So even animals have this concept of property right, and don't let you be fooled by this. These are very two different philosophies, right? I don't know which comedian, but there was on a night show or something like that where he was mentioning how the quote-unquote Europeans bought the land for Manhattan from the Native Americans, and they didn't understand what property rights were because it was land. You know, jokingly, what are they going to buy next? Are they going to buy the sky, right? Because now, of course, I don't know if this was true or not, but as a joke, it sure hit hard, I would say. Of course, we tend to over-romanticize the existence of Native Americans, even Native Europeans before the Middle Ages. You know, when it comes to tribes, and that peaceful existence is always over-romanticized. However, the contrast between the two philosophies is apparent even in that joke. So when it comes to the West, especially, but even just the United States, when it comes to borders, the concept that is being pushed upon many of the youth is that, hey, borders are just arbitrary lines in the sky that people should not necessarily take in count, and because you're a free man to move wherever you want on this earth plane. And this is not a bad philosophy or good philosophy, but you have to question the role behind it. You know, what are they trying to achieve by pushing one philosophy or another. So you should think about this when we're talking about the borders of the United States or even Western countries in Europe. However, somehow that same mentality in the same person shifts totally different when it comes to the Middle East. You know, there the borders are drawn by God himself, right? So you should think about those borders in a very different way. And no, those borders are saint, and you have to defend that. And in some cases, you know, may that be between the Russian-Ukrainian war, those borders are saint and they have to stay where they are, and it is fine to sacrifice as many lives as possible in order to achieve those goals. So there's this very big disconnect within some of these media personalities or politicians when it comes to one country or another country, and you have to contrast the two and understand why that difference is. Not saying that one or the other philosophy would work for everyone or why it's not working for everyone, but I'm saying that there are these two almost extremities, and there's a scale, right? There's a whole spectrum that you could have as a philosophy in between the two. And whatever philosophy you choose for yourself, it should work for you and empower you. The problem is, however, the philosophy is usually picked for you and pushed upon you. And here it is in a can. May that be religion, may that be a new life philosophy that is being pushed upon you. And you have to ask question, why? Why is that? And I think the closest example is to that maybe ego boundaries in philosophy. How do you define who are you, right? And think about in the last 2 years, the ego boundary was shrunk so small where it's like you should not take pride in whatever your ancestors did, whatever your father did, because you were born, you're a blank slate, and whatever you did, maybe you can be proud of that, but not even that, because you were born in this country where you had opportunities somewhere. If you would have been born there, it would have been totally different. So you should not even take pride in your work. And your ego boundaries are shrunk even further down to the point where not even your own physical body is yours. Maybe the state has some right over that to be able to do medical procedures or medical experiments in the past few years, because you owe that to the bigger collective. So your ego boundaries can be shrunk down if you let them to such a minuscule state where your power is taken away. Of course, philosophically, because nothing like this is actually ever true. But then also in the same way, in a different context, your ego boundaries can be expanded to your family, to your ancestors, where you could be held accountable for things or atrocities that maybe your ancestors did many years ago, or people that you never knew, and people that may have contributed to the forming of this country. However, some of those atrocities that they also committed are now somehow blood on your hands. And while these two different philosophies are simultaneously existing, so you have to ask who and why is pushing or shrinking and expanding your ego boundaries where it fits their philosophy and not yours. I'm not saying that there's good and bad in this, but you have to ask, why are these extremities being pushed and pulled based on what the objectives that they want to achieve, not what you want to achieve. The ego boundaries should be flexible, but it should be flexible where you control, where you define based on the situation, based on what power you gain from that. So it should be reversed, where you define your ego boundaries to the point where it fits your philosophy, your way of life, and it empowers you, the individual or the collective, to be able to achieve something that you want your life, or you want to achieve in your life. So hopefully that clears the two philosophies or the spectrum of philosophies, and maybe, just maybe, you will be less likely to be manipulated and you can take control of your life. See you next time.